Hey people, I told y'all in that last movie I was going to show you how they get God out of this word, how they get Elohim out of this. And so I'm going to read these first two lines here and compare it with the Greek, maybe even read the whole Greek. The Greek helps to interpret some of these words. Although it's a total different book, it does help to interpret the words. But the story is that Moses had just left Egypt, and he didn't write it in this script. There was no vowel points back then. And so there was no possible way that anybody could look at this A-L-E-I-M and know that there was supposed to be an O pronounced after that L sometimes and sometimes not. You know, the original was looking more like this, you know, and all you had was these 5 letters, A-L-E-I-M. And if you're beginning to learn this, it's a lot easier with that other script. There's a lot of these letters that are similar. You really have to blow it up to tell which they are. But the only thing they get right is this N, and this is this B sitting over here. We ignore all these points, you know. And possibly this E might be the, but the rest of this is off. The way this is reading is B is the N, and then R-A-S-I-T, and that's rosette. Ancient word for reddish, like a reddish wine. It's a rosé, a rosette. And in rosette, in reddish, bara, in Ra. And Ra, you know, in Egypt was the sun, in Ra. And it even made it over in the Greek. Ra was still the sun. You see it in the Greek in this word for the day, you know, is HM, come thus Ra, come the sun. So it's in reddish, in rosette, in Ra, in a red sun, Aleim, A-L-E-I-M. This is where your word allegiance comes from. Aleim at. Where's your allegiance at? Allegiance to the red sun. And I got some links to some books and some movies called The Land of Mu. And there was an old captain who had found a bunch of writings, and he was getting a different interpretation from the ancient writings, and he said they come from the land of Mu. And he said that's all those places that have that red sun on their flag, the rosette in Ra, in the sun, their allegiance, their Aleim at, was to Mu. And it was ancient sailors from the land of Mu, you know, closer toward America over here. They were much superior people and setting out and taking over territories, and you see it by the ancient red sun flag of Japan, and you know, the symbol of New Mexico. And he was explaining the difference between the red sun with the rays and just the sun peeking over as territories. And you see in this word the Leimat, L-E-I-M-A-T. You know, the Leimat is a plural of Leima. It's a mark, quality mark, given the label. Where's your allegiance, your seal, a characteristic mark of distinction, a stigma, something that taints a reputation. And this coming from the Finnish. It's the only place I'm seeing this word here. But it's in the Irish, you know, to fly is just the Liam, fly at. You know, in the rosette, in the red, in sun, Aleim, to fly at, allegiance at, a stigma. And then E-S-M-I-M is mim. And so mim is the word they'll say is waters, but more like ocean. Mim, in several other languages, the mim would be the ocean. Is mim, and then waters, they say is the earth, is W-A-T-E-A-R-X. So it's not just waters, but it's what hears. And so these are sailors, you know, in rosette, in the red, in sun, allegiance, you know, of fly at, fly the flag of the red sun, is the mim, is the ocean's waters. But mim is also a German contraction of mit dem, with them. You know, is with them, is mim, is with them, is middem. In rosette, in Ra, Aleim at, is with them waters. In rose it bear allegiance, in the red to bear allegiance to. Republican, Eliamat, is with them, is mem, is with them, a tears, W is the mima, the water a tears, the buccaneers, the musketeers, the sailors, the mima a tears. So I'm going to read the next line in that other Bible because it is missing some marks here that I believe were in the original, as these hyphens twice here after all. But that's what it says, in rosette, in ra, alium at, is mem, waters. And you'll see even in the Hebrew, they'll give the mem, the mayim up here, they'll say that means waters. So they'll mix the words up. Sometimes the same word can mean heavens, waters, or sky. You see it right down here in this next line, the waters, the mem. And so he was saying that in his book. He was saying that the symbol for Ra, the circle with the dot in it, was the symbol for Mu, and it meant waters. And then line 2 is just too easy. And you see it's the same word, the earth, and the earth has different markings up here now. And I'm not too sure, I understand how this reads, but I'm not too sure at which pass it reads. It reads in different passes, and it means to move the letter behind, change position of the AR. But it's, WEAR to where, but it's where at, where it's X, where it's height, HITE. You're looking at EKG, when somebody gets excited, X height is where its height is at, where the peak is, and where excite, to excite it, to get it growing, and where its height, where it's highest, and where its height to of who, which cycle in infinitum, where its height to, and to is spelled TEW, and it means to shape. It doesn't mean formless, it means form. And where it's sight to, where it's sight to, the shape of who, which cycle, infinitum, in cycles forever, infinitum. And then aru, aru is to waken up, aru. And to arule, A-L, to arule him, infinite to whom arule him, in charge forever. Arule him from raft, R-H-F-T, from raft, all in place with them, them, the waters for with them. And so the ancient Mayans, they were said to have this big floating raft city where they ruled from. They had all their gardens floating from repetal, hovering, from repetal in place, the mem, those with us, the waters, midem, with them. All in pen, the waters are the mem, the ones that's with us. But if you break it down, it's the waters to work from. It's more like the sailors is them with us, is the waters to work from. They're all sailors, them with us. In rosit ver alium at, is mem waters, where excite to of who, which cycle infinitum, arule him from raft, all in penomim, all in place with them. Where X height, and it's not just where X height, but it's where X height, the X axis, where the X height. And two isn't just two, but it's TEW, means to shape. And where it's height to shape of who, which cycle infinite forever, which cycle infinitum. And in the Greek, it's in arch, the potion of the Austin of ran on, with engine. In the arch, in the top of the potion of the Oston, Oston. And that word's only used in the Finnish, in ancient Sanskrit, and it means to buy or purchase, the purchase, to believe or accept. He bought it. Yeah, he bought the story. In arch the potion of the Austin, of the purchase of ran on. You could see the hour on, where the sun's, the Ra is in the sky. It's telling you the hour. And you have 12 double hours, that's your 12 months, the hour on. And so these words were put together the same as the Hebrew, where they could mean several things mixed with different words in front and behind. In arch the potion of the Austin, of the purchase of ran on, within gin. W key is a WTH, within gin, GEN, with the engine that's turning the heavens. In the arch the potion of the Austin hour ran on, with engine, and the engine is cranking it all. And so this H here, sometimes they'll get it right and then they'll say it's he, the, and it's the he degenerados, the degenerates, falling back, the degenerados. Arados, is like the heart. And they'll say it coming from the Greek, meaning to raise. So arados, meaning to raise, to degen, is to lower, to degenerados, to fall back. That's like what we're doing as a civilization now. We're going back. And he degenerados, and the key is a W, and it's the Wakataskuzados. The Wakataskuzados. The autos are those types of people. And Wakatask, who as two, has twos where it goes, is actually, this KE reads as a LEW. It means lieu. In lieu of means in width of, as to. And so the Wakatash, Akata is according to in category, to put it under. And to whack it is to cut off part. The whack it as to go with, as to. And so what was happening is, in the Hebrew, they were writing the astrology, and this was much later, and the astrology had to degenerados. It had degenerated, and they had to rewrite the astrology because Easter wasn't coming up at the same time in the same set of stars anymore. And so it had degenerados, the whack it as lieu, to go with, as twos, the stars, as to which one, as twos. And skotos, and I believe this is the word that's taking the place of the two in the Hebrew. The scotes are shapes, and in the cut in shapes, in the deep spots is dark, the light doesn't hit them. And the skotos upon it has abusive, to use it up. And you can see better in the other Bible, it has a mark and it'll say, and was under, WSSUB, was under of us. And so in the skotos upon of this abuse of, and these words that start with a PN, they'll tell you the P is silent. It's because it read with the last word. It's reading with this U over here, UB. And then this NE here turns into the B, which is like this B. It could be a B or a V. And so it's up B, in. It's up in whom math, M-A-T-H. It's the God of math. It no longer just lay where everything is supposed to be. Now you had to do some math. You had to add some days, add some times to go with your astrology. And up in who math, and so if you didn't understand math and science, it was God. God did it. But if you understood the math, then God had a different meaning. It meant science. And up in whom math, how, H-O-W, how the prefer it to, the new one that we prefer it to, upon it of to date as. It's all about the times, not the waters. The waters are times. And in this Septuagint that they say is older, it looks like all the letters are the same, but you see it has a lot more directional markings here. And when I can't quite get a word in the Bible, I'll come over here and check and see which way the directional markings go. And it gives a better idea, and to let you know that this word reads W-O-S, and was sub, was under of us so. Was under of us so upon be to math how. And this is probably your word water right here, and to be whom the theo, the who, and the how, the W, and then backwards O-T-E-R, the water. Epep. The water, epep, the prefer it to. Apep is the waters under the boat at night. Apep was the waters. And you got Ra and on his raft, on the waters of Apep. Up be of math, how water Apep, the prefer it to. And if you look up Apep, you see it have a bunch of different spellings. And you see it come up again here, and on Apep, A-P-E-P. It's a common spelling, but it's also spelled P and the Q a couple different ways. And so you just read the O is of, and it's up in who math of, in the W, the water. Epep, prefer it to. On a pep, on at, of to date as. You see the mark here. You got two different markings. It reads three different ways actually. In one reading, this word reads backwards and forwards, and the other reading it reads forwards and backwards. And then one reading it just reads straight through to the date as. But following the markings that follow this apostrophe, which means to turn away, and it's turned this way. So now it reads a date as, and then OT at AD, it's add. A date to his add. And when you follow this mark here, it's saying to read it the other way, and you can see it's the so to do, the due date as, when it's supposed to be here, so to due date as. So I really don't know if this is one ancient book and somebody came back with the vowel points to change it, or if it really seems like more it was originally written like this to read in many different ways. And so when you're reading the upper marks, the dot in the B here tells you to use the lower marking, which is an I. They'll say it's this E here, but it's an I. And it's by rows. And here at the S, it's just saying to add an E. And it's the by rows it, as in the flower. By rows it. And then the dot saying put an A in there, B-A-R-A. And by rows it, Bara. And so this is now the A-L, and the little dot up above the E there says O, A-L-O, and that's halo. And it's spelled the same in the ancient Greek, A-L-O-S, halos. And you see the two marks above it. It means this reads three different ways, so it could be read many different ways and added with words, but one mark says to read it backwards, S-O-L, the sun, halos. And then one way it's the halos, all, O-L. And one way it just reads through halos. And so that tells me that, the original writings, they had to know about this reading style in the original writings. Either that or they created the new language after they created the directional markings. But the halos could mean a threshing floor. And that was just a wide, shallow pan for threshing your wheat, your grain in. the disk of the sun or the moon, a serpent's coil. And you see that the ancient Egyptians always drew the sun and the moon, and they shaped it into the threshing pan. You know, it was always round. It's like they knew the shape. They didn't believe it was just a round, a flat disc. They knew it had shape to it. They could tell by the shadows. You know, it was the odd 10, and they would cut it in deep into the wall so you could see that it was shaped. It was round. It was a ball. And so that's what's going on. These guys are carrying their threshing floor with them. You know, halo him. You know, the mark of him is a halo. Or it could just be this little circle up here, you know, frequently found with fictional angels. The little halo is the 0. And so that's talking about the fool. You know, he's the 0. He's the highest. And he's got the halo over him. And he bears the rose, the white rose. By rose it bear a halo. And then there's 2 diphthongs that I follow in the Greek and in the Hebrew. And one is the AE. It's because they'll stack so many vowels together. Here you got an O, a E, and an I. And there's no way to pronounce that. And sometimes they'll have up to 5 letters put together. But the AE is the ES, and the OE becomes the OLE. It's an odal, and it means an heir, you know, and usually heir to the royalty. And so what you're looking at here is an ALO, and then the L comes again, LEIM. And so this word doesn't change. This LEIM, when you're just reading the letters, is the same as when you're reading the over marks. It just adds a halo before the limat. You know, the seal or the mark of distinction. You know, the limat, the mark of distinction, is the halo. By rose it bear a halo liamat, the halo mark of distinction. And so this is reading the liama, and then the T is reading here, the TES, and then the dot in the S says 2 S's, and above says, this is reading ES, ESA. Come down and grab the lower vowel. And so it's a tessamim. A tessamim means, a tes is the harvest, and amim, AMIM, means complete. Amim, being a boy's name, means complete. Complete. And that's what they say about the fool. When your transformation is complete, you know, then you're the fool. You bear the rose and the halo. By rose it bearer, the halo, liam, the liama, the seal, the mark of, the tessum, the tessamim, the harvest complete. What hears, the waters, what it hears, you know, and at hears, and stuck is complete and stuck on. And so I've been wondering, you know, if I'm supposed to be reading this to the public. I've been looking for something telling me that, and it looks like that's what it says right here. You know, I did several movies back about the fool and about the rose, and it had to do with the Greek gods, and that rose, you know, meant this isn't supposed to be talking about. And so that tells me that, you know, first I'm supposed to read it straight through, and it tells me on the second pass is when I'm supposed to read the lower markings, and then the upper markings are for the final pass, and that's the only one that I'm not supposed to be talking about, you know. And it's by rose. By rose means not talked about, and by rose it bearer, the halo, the liam tesses amim, the mark of the final completion, what it hears, to be stuck. And for some reason, you know, that's what grabbed my attention the most, is the upper marks reading, and that's what most of my movies are on. I read the upper marks, and I've never been one to follow instructions, so I'll probably keep on doing what I'm doing. And it helps to read the other ways too, to help understand what it means. And the lower markings, I don't miss them a lot. That's the most difficult. and definitely most difficult to explain. But you can see here, when you read it now, it's the B-I-R-E, with the lower markings. And it could be, the I-R-A-S, eros. That's where your word eros, erotic, comes from. And that was the god that was given the eros. And it's meant to be quiet. Don't talk about the erotics. And the erotic was the words of Moses. And you can see in there by erase it. And the mark underneath says, come back and read this again, and just the B-R-A-S then. And erase it in rows. And then this line underneath, as you read this, the B-A-R, and then back the other ways, and you ignore the vowel points in the back way, B-A-R, in the barber, in erase it to barber, to shave it all off, in a new beginning, in erase it in rows to barber, to come shave it all off. That's B and then I-R and then E-A-S, and erase it. And so you're looking at the cycles, in the beginning, it wasn't always creation, it wasn't always in rose it, but sometimes it was in erase it, to scratch it all off and do it again. So first it was in rosette, it was red, it was in the red. And then you read the lower markings, and it's then erase it. Got in the red, so erased all of it. And then read the top markings, and then rose it again, and gets in the red, and you erase it, and then rose it again. It's the cycle. And in erase it, B-I-R-E-A-S-A-I-T, erase it. In rows to barber, to shave it all off. The B-A-R-A, B-A-R-A, the barber. And then this is reading the A, and underneath the I-H-L. And then the E gives it the L, O-L-E. And then underneath this dot is the A. And I believe this mark here is a V-I-M. And so now it's in erase in rows the barber, and Y-E-L-O, a yellow leave 'em, L-E-A-V-I-M, to leave 'em. And then the A marks underneath is an E, and so it's an A-E, so this is an E-S, and then T, and then the mark says read the A-T again. And so this is an E-S-T-A-T. So with just these two letters here, you have the word estate, E-S-T-A-T, and then the E here. And a yellow leave 'em estate. The sun done left its house. Yellow leave estate, and then underneath O-S, as, and then underneath the A-M-O-Y, amoy. Amoy means a bad smell, a stench. And a yellow leave 'em estate, as the stench, and then from E-S-M, from ism, and then W-Y, is who, and then A-E is E-S-T-A-T, E-S-T-A-T, ist at, means is it at, and who is it at, or why a stat, to keep up with things, the stats, is at H-A-A-A-V, 3 A's, as in better behoove you, as in H-A-A-A-V, in hoove Rex, R-H-X, the king. Behoove is to have need for, and it's actually the B is in, and hoove, in need the king. Who is at hoove Rex, who is at in need the king. So how they got the word God from this Elohim, is sometimes it's the halo that Liam at, is the halo is his mark, and that's where they get God from. And so this would be the god of the fool, which is the moon. And in that first time with just the letters, it was a leam, it was a mark. It was a distinguishing mark. A god is just a distinguishing mark, which is writings, the words. In the beginning was the Word, And then when you're reading it with the lower markings, you know, it was in erase it in Rose the barber, and a yellow, Y-E-L-O, and a yellow leave 'em, a yellow leave 'em. And so a yellow leave 'em, yellow means color of sunshine, hope and happiness, freshness, you know, brand new. After it's all been wiped off, and then it's yellow. So I'm not saying that any of these things I said mean God. God is just the word when you don't understand the math and science. You know, God is the simple word to explain it. It was God.
Don't forget. I won't forget.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.